Good evening, everybody. We have we're going to start our 5:30 committee meeting. Mr. Vincent has some things he wants to share with you about a grading permit. I think it's the short way of saying it. Finley, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the ordinance that's on tonight's agenda is probably most easily called a grading permit, although in truth, it is a replacement by and large of an existing ordinance 09-13, which was an existing ordinance that was passed obviously in 2009. Most of that existing ordinance has to do with stormwater management, both quantity and quality. So there's a whole lot in that existing ordinance that handles the requirements that we are required by the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality to enforce. And I'd say that's probably the most, the bulk of that existing ordinance, and the majority of that language from the existing ordinance carries forward into this new ordinance. A lot of the other, most of what's also in the existing ordinance is the stormwater management section with respect to quantity. There are a lot of existing drainage requirements in that ordinance, and this new ordinance takes all of those requirements out and simply refers to a drainage manual, which we've been talking about for well more than a year now, maybe almost 2 years, and have been painstakingly working on, and finally have a version ready to publish. Hopefully you should have been provided with a copy of that. If not, I can get you a copy. I don't actually anticipate that anything in either the ordinance with respect to stormwater quality or in the drainage manual will come as much of a surprise to any of our developers. Mostly, as I said, the stormwater quality stuff is carryover. And I think the biggest changes that developers are going to see in the manual are primarily going to make their job easier, because it lays out in great detail what needs to be submitted in order to comply with the ordinance. The previous ordinance didn't do that. It stated the requirements, but it didn't really say much with respect to submittal requirements. And so it put engineers that were submitting drainage information in kind of a tough spot, because they kind of had to guess what we would need to see in order to make sure they were complying with the ordinance. So this stormwater manual, I think, does a pretty good job of outlining for developers and their engineers what needs to be submitted. So that's the first thing that this ordinance does, and primarily is take out all of the stormwater quantity requirements and just refer to the drainage manual. And then the second important thing it does, as the mayor mentioned in name, is it creates a grading permit. Right now, so if you were to look at the beginning of this ordinance, I'm going to scroll to it right now, actually, and let's see, it's on page 3, paragraph D. City issued permits: grading permit, site development permit, residential building permit, and floodplain development permit. So 3 of those 4 permits all already exist, and in large part the requirements for those permits are not changing. We are putting some clearer language in here in the residential building permit that residential builders must comply with the existing stormwater quality requirements in the existing ordinance, which I think is largely true today, but we're just making that language clearer. But the grading permit is a change. So as it says there, any site over an acre where the land is being altered after passage of this new ordinance, those developers would have to get a grading permit. So we've had some, that closes somewhat of a loophole, if you will, and the existing in the way that we do things right now with respect to permitting. Developers are allowed currently to clear a site, for instance, without having a permit, which can create some complication and difficulty because those developers still are required by law to comply with all of the stormwater quality requirements in this ordinance. They're required to comply with those requirements, but they are not required to have a permit in order to do so. So it's not uncommon for developers to be out of compliance with the ordinance, but not really realize it because they weren't required to get a permit. And that's put both the city and developers in some sticky situations on more than one occasion. It's relatively rare for a city of our size not to have a grading permit and to allow developers to undergo large land clearing activities without a permit of any kind. So this is something that we've sought to correct. And that was kind of wordy, but I think in large, that's, even though it's a relatively large ordinance, I think a good portion of the language, like I said, is carryover from the existing ordinance. But the two biggest changes are the creation of the grading permit and taking all of the stormwater quantity requirements out of the ordinance and putting them in the drainage manual.
Hey, Finley, can I ask one question real quick? Will there be a fee for the grading permit?
No, I cannot recall. I don't think we have assessed any new fees in this ordinance.
Okay.
What about on sites larger than 5 acres, Finley?
I don't think the ordinance actually even discusses fees. So any fees that exist currently per ordinance would remain, but the ordinance that I have written does not assess any fees. So, the grading developer would only be required to get a grading permit if he sought to grade a site prior to getting a site development permit or a floodplain development permit. The vast majority of sites that we see eventually go through either the subdivision process or the development review process. And I believe there are fees assessed for those permits. And I think it's probably pretty likely that the majority of developers won't actually get a grading permit. We're doing this a little bit differently. In Little Rock, for instance, which is obviously our largest neighbor, a developer must get a grading permit in almost every case, even if they're going on to get a development permit of some other kind. In our case, if a developer submits for, a developer could submit for a development permit like they already do now, and then they wouldn't have to get a grading permit. The only thing that really would change in a situation like that is that they wouldn't be allowed to start grading until they had the permit that they currently still have to get, if that makes sense. It would just, if a developer wanted to clear the land before he was issued the prior permit, then he could apply for a grading permit. I see James is on. James might have something to add to that.
James, you with us?
Hey, Finley, while we're waiting on James, I had a quick question. By putting in the new ordinance, it just refers to the drainage manual. Do we have to approve the drainage manual? And if you make any future changes, or will that just be done administratively?
No, I think that's a good question for Chuck, but I would assume that we could do it administratively, but I don't know. I'd defer to Chuck on that.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to say, I think I would like to see that, just administrative approval of those type of changes.
And if I'm reading this correctly, Finley, we're talking about the sites larger than 5 acres. That's talking about a ADEQ permit that will be charged for. Is that correct?
Yes, I
Okay.
apologize. I didn't pick up on that. Yes, so in section E, where it talks about ADEQ permits, those are permits that are actually issued by the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality. The city of Conway does not issue those permits. So there are fees associated with some of those permits, but they're not assessed by us.
Thank you. I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you.
Council, I know of 2 instances this past year where we had some fairly large subdivisions that had started turning dirt and moving, and they hadn't even gone through the first process with the city. And in order for us to get a pretty good grip on it, the city had to reach out in order to cease and desist. So I think this will help us in controlling some of the projects that start before they've been given the okay by the by Finley and the planning department and everyone else.
I'll also say that we've put a whole lot of work into this. I think it's very possible that we may need to amend it in the future, and I think that's okay. There's probably going to be some things that happen that we didn't think of, or some unforeseen consequences. It may be that the permits department thinks that it's appropriate in the future, if we get more of these than I have anticipated, to assess a fee. But of course, if changes like that need to be made, then we'll be back here talking to you about it.
Any other comments or questions for Finley? James, how about you? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think Finley pretty well covered it. We really are trying to apply a light touch in this, in a lot of ways, just graft onto our existing processes as much as possible. It's ultimately it's just those instances primarily where they're doing something before they have approval that we really are very concerned about, are largely concerned about.
Any other questions? Counselor, are you okay with me moving this forward to the 6:30 meeting? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay with me.
Good with me too.
All right. We'll bring it back to y'all at 6:30. Unless anyone has anything else. Mr. Ledbetter, would you like to sing us a Christmas carol or anything before we take a break?
I'm gonna spare y'all this season.
Please, I got a stomachache. Please spare me.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
but
you.
I think
sorry.
Mr. Jones has a birthday coming up.
That was last month.
Yeah.
You should know, Miss Mel.
I do.
I actually have a birthday coming up this month. I'll be 49, I think.
I believe that's right.
How many?
Well, good. I'll just track right along with you, Bart.
I went to school with a lot of y'all, so y'all know the truth. All right. Well, Finley and James, thank you for your time. Council, thank you for your time. I will bring this back to you at the 6:30 meeting. And until then, we'll just take a break till we see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We proceed each council meeting with a word of prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like, please feel free to join us. Would you bow, please? Lord God, we thank you for this time of year, and Lord, what it signifies to each of us. We thank you for your grace and your mercy. And Lord, we just pray for our decisions tonight, that they will be what's best for the city of Conway, and that you will bless them for us. And those things we pray in your holy, precious name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now call this meeting to order. Mr. Garrett, would you call the roll?
Mr. Hawkins,
Here.
Mr. Grimes,
Here.
Mr. Pruitt,
Here.
Ms. Mel, Mr. Ledbetter,
Here.
Ms. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Jones,
Here,
Ms. Isby.
Okay, you should have received copies of the city council minutes for November 24th, 2020. Any corrections, changes, or comments? If not,
I
I'll take
make
a
the
motion.
motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
second,
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's just 7-0. Before we move along any further tonight, we have a very special guest with us. Officer Carson Howard. I would like to just read something for you. Thank you for joining us, officer.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. On Monday, November 2nd, 2020, I responded to a house fire located at 1845 Teresa Drive. Upon arrival, I used my vehicle to block all northbound traffic on East German Lane. Good move right off the bat, Carson. On the south side of Teresa Drive. When I exited my vehicle, I noticed a woman exit the house with two small children, stating that there was still one person inside the house. I ran into the home and announced police and waited to hear a response. I heard a woman yell, "Oh my God," down the hallway from where I entered the home. Once in the living room, I saw a male and a female sitting on the couch. I beckoned the lady off of the couch and the gentleman into the hallway and got them to move outside. Into the hallway. As I was leaving, I heard Officer Williams shouting to get out of the house. I yelled back that I was coming out and I had everyone out of the house. Once the three of us exited the home, the individual was helped to his feet after they fell on the ground, and then Officer Howard ran south on East German Lane to check to see if there were any homes behind this house that were on fire. So not only did you block traffic and make a daring rescue, but you went ahead and made sure that nothing else was happening. And I just want you to know that we truly appreciate your service and your dedication to the people of Conway and the risk that you took. Chief Ledbetter and I have been in a few burning buildings ourselves, and we can promise you that it's not fun in there. So Officer Howard, thank you, sir, for a job well done.
Job well done.
Thank you, Officer Howard.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, man. That's what we need in the city.
You bet. Great job. Great job. Also, while I'm thanking folks, and then we'll move on to business, Mr. Ledbetter, I'd like to thank you and Judge Baker and the Faulkner County Road Shop. If any of you haven't, you need to go out to Blaney Hill Road and travel that, as well as Cimarron, going both ways to there. The county, we sent a letter to them asking them to help us out with that, and they partnered. Well, actually, they did the work for us. And Mark, I just appreciate you and Jim and your crews gratefully. Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
And I got a text message from one of Ward 2 residents about Blaney Hill and how much better it is. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What ward is that?
That would be the best ward, Ward 2.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Moving
Very
right.
good.
First up tonight, we have community development, and Mr. Hawkins, I will turn this over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item on this portion of the agenda is an ordinance granting a franchise to King's Live Music to utilize specific street rights of way on the east side of Front Street in the city of Conway. This has been looked at for a while, Mr. Mayor, by our planning department, and by our code enforcement people. And they have come to the conclusion that that this is a good thing for us to help out a local business right now. All of our local businesses, our small businesses, are challenged at this time. And anytime that we can find a way that we can help a small business out, it's in our best interest to do that. And that is what this ordinance is for. Mr. Garrett, what is the ordinance number, please? 75, I think is what you said.
02075. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins, I agree with you. This is a good thing.
It is a good thing, and I'd like to thank Chuck Clausen. Chuck, are you on here? I don't see Chuck. Or Chuck, you at the meeting? Are you there?
Yes, sir. Here I am.
Yeah. Would you like to talk real briefly about this? You were very instrumental in getting this pushed through.
I appreciate being a part of it. I also agree we need to get creative in kind of these tough times, especially for local business owners. We drafted, along with the help of Mr. James Walden, this franchise agreement to allow them to have a food truck outside their establishment. As Mr. Hawkins mentioned, code enforcement, fire department, planning, they all kind of signed off on everything. It's specific to the current owners. It can't be transferred. It's got a lot of other provisions in there that protects the city, but also allows for what I thought was a pretty creative idea by Kings.
Yeah.
Good. And Mr. Mayor, I see that Dustin Botsford, one of the owners of Kings, has joined us. Dustin, are you there?
Yes, I am, Andy. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
I thank all of you, and Chuck, especially thank you. I know you took a lot of time working on that you didn't have to, and I just want to say thank you for the efforts that you put into that.
Very welcome.
I make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance granting a franchise to Kings Live Music to utilize a street right away. Any further discussion or comments? Mr. Garrett.
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Ms. Isby, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Botsford. Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you all.
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda tonight is resolutions requested for the Faulkner County Tax Collector to place certified liens against property as a result of incurred expenses to the city. We have 3 of those this evening that were originally on here, but we also have had one of them on Bean Street apparently has been paid in full. So the first one we don't need to read, but the next 2 locations need to be dealt with. And the first one is at 2208 Stout Street.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes, sir.
I just want to interrupt you right there. I apologize. The property owners came in and got that paid today. There was an email sent out late in the day, but that one was taken care of. And number 3 on our list is the only one up tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Spencer. I appreciate you correcting me on that. So
Yes, sir.
down to the third one, which is 2411 Parkwood. And so the city right now is out $217.78 on that particular piece of property. We have a resolution to be read for that item. Mr. Garrett, the resolution number is R2093.
93.
Thank you.
I make a motion for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution for to place a lien on property located at 2411 Parkwood in the amount of $217.78. Is anyone from that location here that would like to speak to this? Okay, council, no one's there to speak. So at this time, I'll ask Mr. Garrett to call for the vote.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance creating a diversity advisory council for the city of Conway. And let's see, Shawana, would you like to talk about this one?
Hello, everyone. How are you this evening?
Hey, Shawana. Great.
Sure. I'm excited with the diversity and economic development position being a new position within the city. This is unique as it will be the first diversity advisory council for the city of Conway. With this council, we will be bringing together these individuals just to take a look at diversity in city government as a whole and extend it to the community at large. So I'm really excited about the individuals that we were able to take a look at for this, and I am requesting and asking for your approval.
And
I make
council,
the motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
I move
I'll
for
make the-
adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance creating a diversity advisory council. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
and Mr. Pruitt.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Shawana.
Thank you.
Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is approval of some board and commission members. The nominations were made. They were advertised in October. And we have 6 different commissions or boards that we need to approve members for tonight. The first one is the Airport Advisory Committee. And the nominees in that category were Brett Carroll and Bill Atkinson for terms to run from January 1 until December 31 of 2024. And I move that we accept those 2 nominated positions for the Airport Advisory Committee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the nominations to the Airport Advisory Committee, Mr. Brett Carroll and Mr. Bill Atkinson. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Passes 7-0.
The-
Bicycle and pedestrian, Mr. Hawkins.
The next one is the bicycle and pedestrian, Mr. Mayor, as you just said, and we have 5 people to go on here. One, John Ross Henderson will be coming on, and his term is set to expire December 31st of 2021. The other 4 members nominated will have terms that will run through December 31st of 2023. And those nominations are Isaac Sims, Andrew Register, Marie Kaysen, and Jeremy Waits. And I move that we accept those nominations.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the nominations to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Board, Isaac Sims, Andrew Register, Marie Kaysen, Jeremy Waits, and John Ross Henderson. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Passes 7-0.
The next council is the new Diversity Advisory Council that we just created just a few moments ago. And I don't see that Shawana is still with us, but I do have, Shawana, are you there? And I'm just missing you? No, doesn't look like it. I do have the names to be forwarded to us for approval. They are Wayne Dickerson, Danielle Henry, Jalen Hughes, Raphael Marlowe, Corey Parks, Gemma Quintana, and Jordan Summers. And Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept those nominations for the brand new Diversity Advisory Council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the nominations to our Diversity Advisory Council. These terms will be staggered. Mr. Wayne Dickerson, Danielle Henry, Jalen Hughes, Raphael Marlowe, Corey Parks, Gemma Quintana, and Jordan Summers. We have a motion and a second, council. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 7-0.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is the Historic District Commission. And we have two nominees for that commission at this point in time. They are Marie Kaysen and Shane Lind, both of those to serve terms that will expire December 31st of 2023. And I move that we accept those nominations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place on the Historic District Commission, Marie Kaysen and Shane Lynn. Any further discussion?
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
can a person serve on two commissions?
That
Because
is a
Marie
question.
Kaysen is also on the Bicycle Advisory Board.
Mr. Clausen says he does not see a problem with that.
Okay, just double checking.
No, thank you, Ms. Smith.
Yeah, we had researched that. The staff had the same concern, but we did research that.
Okay, thank you.
We need to let Marie know we appreciate her stepping up and helping us out.
For sure.
Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 7-0.
The next board is the Oak Grove Cemetery Board, Mr. Mayor, and we have one nomination to take membership there, and that is Claude Moore, with Claude Moore's term to expire December 31st, 2024. And I move that we accept that nomination.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept Mr. Claude Moore for a term on the Oak Grove Cemetery Board. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 7-0.
And we have nominations, Mr. Mayor, for two Planning Commission members. One is Laura King, that's been forwarded to us by the Planning Commission, and the second is Larry Webb. Both of their terms will run until December 31st of 2025. So there are 5-year terms, and I move that we accept those nominations.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Laura King and Larry Webb to the Planning Commission. I'd like to comment on Larry. He is a veteran of our armed services here, career veteran, and he and his family do some really nice things in the neighborhood. They have Kona Ice come out and they treat all the kids to Kona Ice. And Larry is he will show up. He will be very involved. He's going to be an excellent choice. So I just wanted to make that comment about Larry. Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to authorize the city to sell a portion of vacant property that's approximately 4.5 acres in size, located on Blaney Hill Road. And we have a resolution to be read for this item. Resolution is R 2094.
Mr. Walden, would you like to explain this to us, please, sir?
Yes, we were approached by Mr. Conway, who lives there at the back of that property. His family has owned property adjacent to that for several generations going back. The property that we are looking at selling can only really be accessed via his property. Part of it is a site that was intended for mountain bike trails. But again, this he had his grandfather had a home place on part of the land that we are selling. The proceeds that we'll be using can be used to help with designing of the mountain bike trails that will go out there. But it was kind of I'll be honest with you, a little bit of for staff in looking at this, a kind of a touching moment that this was land that this individual had for a long time. They were under the impression that their family still owned it. And we've just been happy that we would be able to sell this back to them to help accommodate something that's a bit of a long family legacy in a way.
Thank you, Mr. Walden.
I make a motion for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution to sell a portion of a vacant property located on Blaney Hill Road. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution authorizing the mayor to convey property located along South German Lane as being necessary for the beneficial to the welfare of the residents of Conway. And Mr. Mayor, you want to talk about this one?
I'm going to let Mr. Bethay and Mr. McDaniel from Conway Corporation talk about this one. They can enlighten you better.
Thank you.
Brent. Well, I thought they was going to cover this, but this is property that we.
Guys hear me?
Is he on there now?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. My Zoom capabilities are a little lacking. So this is a piece of property. It's a little piece of property about 0.63 acres at the northeast intersection of Stone Dam Creek and South German Lane. It originally belonged to the Hensey family back in 1993. The Hensey family was approached by Conway Corporation to sell that parcel so that some infrastructure could be placed on it. Basically, it was a wastewater pump station back then, and some other line work and such. In return for physical connection of two houses on the east side of German Lane to that new sewer line. So that happened, and then in 2011, of course, we Conway Corporation acquired additional easements for the Tupelo Bio line work. That's all the line work and the improvements that you guys were made aware of quite some time ago. And then in 2019, Conway Corporation secured the necessary easements so that the city and Conway Corporation could quit claim that property after the decommissioning in those Tupelo Bio improvements of that wastewater lift station. So it was no longer needed other than the easements for the line work, right? Anyway, so the west 65 feet, which should cover, it also has a right of way. That should cover, even if you guys wanted an 80-foot right of way, if Finley decides that that's what he needs there, that'll cover that plus the utilities. So we have those easements and they've been filed at the courthouse. And so now in 2020, the members of the Hensey family requested the completion of that release. And that's what you're looking at there.
Very good. Thank you, Brett.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this resolution to convey property located along South German Lane. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
The resolution R 2095. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Bill and Brett.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hawkins.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. The next item on the agenda is an ordinance approving professional services for the Salem Road Bridge project for the Transportation Department. And we were awarded a $3 million grant from MetroPlan earlier this year. Mr. Vincent, I see you popping up when I talk about money and roads, and there you are.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about it.
As you said accurately, we were awarded a $3 million grant from MetroPlan to build the new bridge on Salem Road over Tucker Creek and the Kinley Trail, and I'm very excited about that. We originally secured a contract with Garver for the structural aspects of the bridge only, but now that we've won the grant, we're seeking to expand their contract. Now that it's got federal money in it, things get a little more complicated. So the contract is an hourly, not to exceed, in 3 basic areas: environmental documentation and RDOT coordination for $233,800. Property acquisition services, $127,700, and construction inspection, $238,000.
Very good.
Thank you, Finley.
Mr. Vinson?
What was
Counsel,
that?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Hawkins.
Is there anything else you can tell us, Finley?
Oh, yeah. So we've already started, both my office and Garver have already started on the engineering plans. In fact, we're probably just about ready to submit 60% plans to RDOT. Generally, the first submittal is a 30% set, but we've asked for permission to submit a 60% set, and I think they're going to agree to that since we're already that far along. Essentially, this was a project we were prepared to build ourselves, as you guys probably know, but the grant is of course wonderful because that frees up $3 million that we can use elsewhere. The money must be obligated next year, late next year. So I expect the construction to begin late next year or at the latest early the following year. So it's going well.
And I think one of you asked the question last time, will the bike pathway go under the new bridge? It will. So that'll help with moving traffic through there as well, making it safer.
Mr. Vinson, inquiring minds want to know how many lanes of traffic will this new bridge handle?
Yeah, so we had initially prepared to build it. The bridge structure, let me say this, the bridge structure itself will be built to handle 4 lanes. But the road itself, you will only see 3 lanes on. We've completed a detailed traffic study and spent some time talking to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Board. And there's only about 60 feet of right of way for most of the Salem corridor leading from College to Dave Ward. And so if we were going to go ahead and build 4 lanes of traffic, that would not really be, I think, the most efficient way to build this corridor right now. A lot of us, myself included, my engineers and the BPAP all agreed that if we did that and built bike lanes and sidewalks, which is probably normally the case in Conway, that might not be the most context sensitive solution given the proximity to the trail and the school. So we're going to go ahead and build the bridge 4 lanes wide. Bridges last better than 50 years. So I think it's appropriate, and we'll need to build it that wide anyway in order to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic in both directions during construction. But once the project is completed, what you'll actually see is a 3-lane roadway with wide side paths on both sides.
So if it were to be built out to 4 lanes for vehicular traffic, would it also include bicycle lanes on either side as well?
Yes, there'd be room. There will be room for, in fact, 4 lanes and side paths. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Finley.
That's all I've got.
I make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance approving professional services for the Salem Road Bridge project. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like for Finley just to stay on a minute after we get through voting on this, please. Please, sir.
Okay. All right. Did you get that, Finley?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Garrett.
It's the ordinance 02077. Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Ms. Mill,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Hey, I just got a quick question for you about South German Lane and Stonedale. You know, the road is closed out here and people have been all over me. Can you please tell them what's going on down there, please? Come on, Mr. Hawkins. You know how that works, man.
Well, I see Brett McDaniel is still on. I'll tell you what I know, and he may want to tell you more. But I know that Conway Corporation has asked for permission to close that road, and we granted them the permit. My understanding is that they are in the process of moving a sewer main, one that crosses the creek, as I understand it, and I think this project has the potential to benefit everyone in the area because the existing sewer main is high and is up in the creek flow line and causes flooding in the area on a somewhat regular basis. So there's some hope. I think this is a grant that Conway Corporation applied for and won, if it's the project that I'm thinking of. And so that's what they're doing, is a sewer main relocation. If Brett can hear me and wants to add anything to that, I welcome him.
Yes, Finley, if you guys with that park property on the west side are leasing that to a cattle farmer, you're going to have to find another way to water the cattle.
Man, I appreciate the answer because you don't know how many times I've heard that here lately.
Mr. Jones, I was in that area the other day and saw that it was closed. I started to call you and ask you what's going on.
My number don't work anymore. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Finley.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Mr. Hawkins.
And final item I've got, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance establishing requirements for permitting all grading, excavation, and other land altering activities for the Transportation Department. And this is the one we talked about earlier this evening at committee meeting. Mr. Benson.
Yes, sir. I think hopefully I described it well in committee, but for viewers at home that weren't listening, this is an ordinance that replaces an existing stormwater ordinance and adds to it. In fact, what it subtracts from it is a lot of the requirements that are written into the ordinance. We've taken those out and put them in a stormwater manual that provides. It's a thick document that provides a lot of guidance to engineers and would be a good bedtime reading for everyone else. In addition, it establishes a grading permit to help essentially clarify processes for developers that seek to clear property.
Any other questions for Mr. Vinson about that? Anybody need clarification on anything? We have an ordinance to read for this, Mr. Vinson. It's ordinance 02078.
I make a motion to waive 3 readings.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
I make a motion for adoption.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance establishing the requirements for all stormwater management, grading, excavation, and other land altering activities. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Miss Mel,
Aye.
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Finley. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, sir. Mr. Vinson, my brain has just been on fire. I've been trying to figure out who it is that you look like.
Colonel Sanders.
No.
Monopoly guy.
Vladimir Lenin. Look it up.
Burl Ives. It's Burl Ives.
Yeah, he needs to be bigger.
I'm your Huckleberry.
He looks like Val Kilmer in Tombstone.
That's right.
He wishes.
I like Mr. Jones' answer.
He wishes. Merry Christmas, Mr. Vinson.
Thank you, Finley.
Merry Christmas to you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, sir.
And our final item for business tonight is the adoption of the 2021 budget. Before we vote on that or discuss it, I'd like to read a prepared statement. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Winningham presented an overview of the 2021 budget. I want to reiterate a couple of components of the proposed budget. Sales tax revenues budgeted flat as a responsible approach to the uncertainty around the COVID-19 pandemic. Sales tax numbers this year so far have been positive, but only when comparing the collection of amount to internet sales tax from 2020, which we did not have in 2019. As you know, sales tax makes up 59% of the general fund and could have a dramatic negative impact if we irresponsibly overstate our revenue. Property tax revenue is budgeted flat based on several years of no significant growth. Nearly all other revenue sources are forecasted to decrease, including the beverage tax, permits, franchise fees, and parks revenues. The impact on these revenues is almost entirely a function of disruptions resulting from the pandemic. Before I go further, let me say there are many varied opinions on COVID-19. We are not basing our assessments. We are basing our assessments on the numbers and on the real facts that we see as operating as a city. We're not going off of just opinions. We're just going by the real numbers. There have been several folks who have thought that I've been a little overly conservative in our approach, but I'd like to bring your attention to several issues that are in conversation about our economy here in Conway. As we sit here today, Faulkner County has reached its highest number of COVID-19 cases we have seen since the start of the pandemic. While vaccines are on the horizon, public health officials, including our coordinator, Ty Ledbetter, who I have a tremendous amount of confidence in, still believes that we are going to see things move in a downward trend for quite some time. Kiera and Felicia recently completed our rental and utility assistance program utilizing CARES Act funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This process was illuminating as to the need that exists right here in Conway because of the impact of COVID-19. In just a few short weeks, $100,000 was provided to Conway citizens who were struggling to pay for food, rent, and keep their lights on. We also had the opportunity to help some of the small businesses that were among the hardest hit by the pandemic. Further changing our consumer behaviors, and we don't know how those could significantly impact retail sales, for which our general fund budget is dependent. While I believe that our diverse local economy will fare better than our projections, I would be derelict in my responsibilities to move forward in anything less than a fiscally conservative manner. I fully accept that next year, as conditions with the pandemic improve, perhaps it will be easy to say we were too responsible. But if conditions are challenging, the city of Conway will be positioned to weather the storm without the difficult decisions other cities are being forced to make. Earlier, other cities were talking about budget cuts and discussing furloughs and layoffs. We did not have to do that. And some of the other cities are using their CARES Act money, which is one-time money, to be spent on different items. And, being one-time funds, I just don't feel good in doing that. Our spending freeze in 2019, when COVID first started, saved us about $1.5 million in the general fund. Our reserve account currently has $1.1 million in it. And the National Association of Government Finances officials recommend that general fund reserves at a minimum be 2 months of operating expenditures. For us, that would be about $6 million if one of those months had three pay periods in it. So I will probably ask this council to move our CARES Act money into our actual reserve fund to get that number up. I believe that we as a city with this budget are positioned to stand out as a city that has taken a responsible approach. I know that was kind of long and wordy, but I've thought about this long and hard. And with that being said, council, I'll open the floor for discussion or for a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt the budget as submitted, but I would like to say that I would like to see us engage in a salary study this year if we could, and just see where our salaries are for all city employees, and move forward from there once we weather the storm of COVID and see where we stand at that point.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2021 budget. Any further discussions or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I think that being conservative on this, and because we still don't know what's going to happen out in our community, I think that we have to watch everything that we spend. And I think that approaching this budget in this fashion is the way to go right now, because nobody that's on this call right now has ever been through what we're going through right now. And we just need to hold tight with what we've got and see what comes out the other side of this pipe called COVID-19.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. And again, we're basing everything on numbers and trends that we're seeing. We're not picking a side on this. We're just going strictly by the numbers. Ms. Smith, I will say that we can look at this. The Municipal League does provide that information to the city at no cost. So we can easily have Ms. Mabry Williams to look into that. Okay, I got a little ahead of myself. Mary, did you make a motion to waive the 3 readings?
No, so moved though.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Take a motion to adopt, council.
So move.
So moved. Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Jones and a second by Mr. Ledbetter to adopt this ordinance for 2021 for the budget. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
This be ordinance 02079. Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt?
Aye.
Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Council, are y'all okay with having one meeting in December, this being our only meeting in December?
Yes.
Okay with me.
Okay, this will be our
Something
only.
that comes up.
So since this is going to be our last meeting in December, and I told Chuck I would bring my Christmas hat just for him. Sean, would you come up here, please? As you may or may not know, y'all all know, tonight will be the last meeting for Mr. Clausen to be the city attorney. It's hard for me to say something nice about Chuck because he and I we're kind of like Ledbetter now. We like to go back and forth at each other hard, but it's because we're good friends. I consider Chuck a very good friend. He is someone who has kept me out of trouble, who has answered my phone calls at all hours of the night. I apologize for that, Sean. And on weekends, and he has always offered very wise counsel. I've had the opportunity, I've been with the city over 40 years to work with several of our city attorneys, and they've all been really good. You know, Mike Murphy was just a kind, gentle soul, and he's doing a tremendous job as a judge. But the thing I like about Chuck is, bless his heart, he just likes to fight. And he's done a really good job in helping us out in the city. So Chuck, I'm going to miss you personally, but I'm going to miss you professionally. And I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I appreciate that. And putting up with you over the last 4 years has given me about 3 minutes on the mic before he cuts it off. So if y'all would indulge me just for a minute, I'll try to get through this pretty quickly. I really can't believe this is my last city council meeting. But first of all, I want to thank a couple folks. First of all, my wife, Sean. She's put up with those late night calls, the trial preparations, the constant discussions of whatever issues are most pressing at the office at that particular moment. She's the best part of every one of my days, and I feel very lucky that she chose me.
We know that.
Yeah.
You're a wise man, Mr. Clausen. I always knew that.
I also want to thank Mike Murphy. He gave me an opportunity we didn't have to, and he set an example that pushed me to be a better attorney and better public servant. I want to thank my staff, Christy Phillips, Jan Meeks, Amanda Stanton Todd, who I am stealing away. So I'm sorry to the
we heard
the city for that. Evan Pence, and of course, Charles Finkenbinder. I want to thank you for all you do for me in the city of Conway. You really do make every day a good day. So I appreciate that. I'm hard to put up with sometimes. So I remember, it's been several years ago now, but I still remember that coming to work the day after this council appointed me to fill out Mike Murphy's term, and the phone rang. And I remember the sheer terror that came over me because I didn't know if that was going to be an angry defendant or someone that wanted to sue the city, or more than likely it would be a department head or the mayor or one of you that had a question that I probably didn't have the answer to. So it's funny that the thing that made that ringing phone so scary ended up being the best part of my job. With the help of many others, my office was able to accomplish quite a bit in what seemed like a short period of time. We restructured the collections process for the A&P Commission, which has led to reducing delinquent businesses from dozens to just a handful and from tens of thousands in arrearage to maybe just a few thousand during any given month. We began handling our own criminal district court appeals and gave them the time and attention that they require. We increased community involvement with civic groups, schools, volunteer opportunities, and various speaking engagements. We worked very hard on citizen engagement, education of the district court process, and just letting folks know what we can do as a city prosecutor. Most people, their only contact with the court system is going to be through district court, whether it be speeding tickets or even a code enforcement violation. And it's important that those people trust and understand the process, so no matter what the result is, they know that it was fair. We increased transparency and public access with creation of several public safety programs with the help of Conway Police Department. We've been very successful in all our litigation efforts, including trials and negotiations. We were trying to add it up, but I think during my time as city attorney, we've saved or recovered hundreds of thousands of dollars for the residents of Conway. We've handled thousands of cases in district court, and that's mainly because of the trust that this body put in me and my office, because we were able to add an additional deputy position. And that doesn't necessarily mean additional convictions. What it does is it allowed us to become victim-centered. It allowed us to prepare for each and every case, meeting with victims, reaching out to witnesses. We need our residents to know that their cases were important. We worked on creative resolutions and solutions to ensure that justice was done every time. We had huge impacts in a couple different areas, and that was in domestic battery. Something I started, and of course Charles has really taken off with, is our domestic battery program. It's something that's looked upon and emulated in multiple jurisdictions around the state. Also, our DWIs, our conviction rate is 94%. And we also created a search warrant that at the time was new to the state, but is now being used by the Arkansas State Police and several jurisdictions around the state. We strengthened relationships with crucial partners around Arkansas, such as other city attorneys, multiple law enforcement agencies, Conway School District, Arkansas Municipal League, and our local community, and including community leaders. I'm also proud to be the current president of the City Attorneys Association for Arkansas. Now, these relationships provide resources and create opportunities to help my office or the city attorney's office do a better job for the citizens of Conway. The most important thing to me is the relationships that I built with everyone I've worked with during my time at the city of Conway. Mayor Castleberry, Chief Mike Winter, Chief William Tapley, Lisa Mabry Williams, Steve Ibbotson, Joe Hopper, all the department heads, everyone at City Hall. Of course, Felicia.
Even Spencer.
She's only got one name. That's all she needs. And even Spencer. Absolutely. Been very proud of him and the work that he's done. I can tell you that each and every one of these folks genuinely cares about our employees, our city, and our citizens. I can't tell you how much fun I've had as the city attorney for Conway. I'm a Conway boy. I was born and raised here. My family's here. And this is where Sean and I raise our boys. It means more to me than I can ever express to be able to serve my community. Being the Conway city attorney has been an honor of my life. And I have this council to thank for it. None of what we've accomplished together was possible without your support and trust. I've never taken it for granted, and I'll always be grateful for it. But with every end, there's a new beginning. The new year will bring a new city attorney for the city of Conway, and that's going to be Mr. Charles Finkenbinder. He's competent, he's compassionate, and he's conscientious. And he's already made his first and maybe his best decision by naming Mr. Evan Pence as his chief deputy. I want to thank you all for everything. I will miss being your city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Clausen. We have this for Chuck tonight. It says honoring Chuck Clausen, city attorney, and your recognition of your years of dedicated service, guidance, and leadership in the city of Conway. We appreciate your unwavering support and commitment to make our city a better place. Thank you for your faithful years of service to the Conway community. Best wishes. This is from the city council and from my office. And Chuck, you truly will. You truly are a true friend. And I'm going to miss you. I mean, I can't help it. I'm going to miss you. But with that being said, we're going to do a little ceremony here. We're going to give Chuck his plaque. And there you go, Chuck. And you can pick up your city attorney nameplate there.
I get two.
And Mr. Charles Finkenbinder, here's yours, sir. Would you come up and place it at your seat? And you are the new city attorney starting January 1, sir. Charles, would you like to say something?
I don't want to make this about me. That's what attorneys try to do, and I don't want to do that. When we started off tonight, and this was a good example of what I've learned about Chuck Clausen, is the Kings franchise. That's a good example of the kind of dedication and professionalism that Chuck Clausen has brought to the office. He never says, "That's not my job." He always says, "How can I help?" And tonight, I thought it was a fitting start to the city council meeting to discuss a prime example. And you heard from the citizens involved in that, their appreciation for Mr. Clausen's work. That doesn't just happen. Chuck talked a little bit about his office's criminal prosecution and the conviction rate, and that is a direct result of his commitment to public safety and his commitment to public safety in restructuring and doing the hard work necessary to restructure the office to make sure that that conviction rate is as high as it is. And it's not just a record of conviction, it's a record and proof of safety on our roads. That's the key, and that was Chuck's focus all throughout the DWI conviction and prosecution process, was not just to get convictions, but to make the road safe for all of us. And that was a personal commitment by him, and that's what the conviction rate represents. But on domestic violence, and Chuck downplayed his role in this, but one thing that I want to stress that stood out to me from the very beginning was Chuck's dedication to enhancing victim safety by pushing constantly to create safe spaces for the victims, the men, the women, and the children who are the victims of domestic violence. I've never seen anybody else with that level of commitment to people who are easily forgotten, and in many places are. That's always been important to him, and I promise you that I'm going to keep that forward. I promise Chuck that I'm going to keep that forward. Another thing, and I'm going to make this short, that I have personally witnessed in the time that I have spent working for Chuck is his dedication to public service. And that's a phrase that's probably overused, but I can't think of any other person that it applies more to or that is embodied more by Chuck Clausen. He lives that principle, and he has instilled that in everyone who works for him, from every last one of us. And it's a day in and day out principle that he's instilled in us. And I can't tell you the number of times that his office staff, and he'll never take any credit for this, but it's all his office staff have been complimented by citizens who felt that they were listened to, cared for, and protected by his office. And that starts from the top down. And that is something that Chuck has done day in and day out. And I can speak for everyone who has worked for him these past 3 years that I have, that we're proud to carry that tradition on. We're proud to be members of the city attorney's office because of the standards that Chuck has set. And I'll close by saying this, that I'm slightly older than Chuck, but I will say this: in the 3 years that it's been my privilege to work for him, his dedication, his professionalism, his commitment to justice, and his inspiration to serve the public has not just made me a better lawyer, it's made me a better man. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Mr. Fingermeyer. And all kidding aside, Chuck, you've served the city of Conway and the people of Conway quite well. And Ed and Don, if y'all are watching, you've got 3 great sons. Y'all done a good job in raising them. Chuck, it's for you, man.
You did a great job, Chuck. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This is all we have for tonight's agenda. I think Mr. Ledbetter wanted to close us out with singing Handel's Messiah. Mr. Ledbetter?
Singing who?
Handel's Messiah, you know.
Handel's Mustachio.
Started.
There's got to be a story there.
I don't have Pepto-Bismol. I told you earlier. Please don't.
Things that happen in the fire station stay in the fire station, not the mark.
This is true.
Council, I've enjoyed this year working with each of you. You've done a tremendous job. You take care of the people of Conway. You're a tremendous group of people, and it's my honor and privilege to work with you. Merry Christmas to you all. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, all.
Y'all be safe. Please be
Y'all
safe.
too.